The other day, I heard someone referring to someone else with its pronouns, and it occurred to me that its is the kind of language that we use for like really cute animals.
However, once you stop taking puberty blockers, your body will then go into puberty, and that's why it's only temporary.
Wait, you're trans? I thought you were non-binary. Well, technically non-binary is under the trans umbrella, so...
Hey everybody, I'm Brad Polumbo, and welcome back to the Damage Control Podcast, where we're reclaiming the LGBT community and the debate over these issues from the crazy people on both extremes. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and don't forget to hit that like button and comment with your thoughts as we go along. Today, we're talking about a bombshell new study in the debate over youth gender medicine, misgendering drama tearing apart the Virginia state legislature, and as always, I react to some insane LGBT TikToks from the perspective of a center-right, moderate gay guy. Without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, to start everybody, I want to play a little bit of a game with you guys. All my viewers and listeners out there, just ask yourself this question. Did I find this real headline on an LGBT news website, or is this what ChatGPT came up with when I asked them to generate a insane woke LGBT headline? You tell me. The headline is, "The Black Queer Performers Fighting to Decolonize the Art of Pole Dance." Take a second right now and comment and let me know, is this real or is this AI generated? Drum roll, please. Yeah. It's real. This is from LGBTQ Nation, which is one of several woke LGBT news websites that I check for story ideas and topics. And you're welcome, by the way. I suffer through a lot of cringe content just to sort out what I might need to discuss with you guys on this podcast. So you're welcome for that. But this is a headline I came across because apparently pole dancing is now an art. I mean, I'm open to that idea. Not exactly what I pictured when I thought of pole dancing. And apparently it has been colonized and needs to be decolonized. And that this is a cutting edge frontier in the battle for LGBTQ equality now. Yeah. Anyway, that's the state of LGBT media, folks. Which is why I get a lot of my news about LGBT subjects from other sources, not the LGBT media, which frankly I don't view as very credible. And that brings us to our first main story of the day, where a New York Post report is making a lot of headlines and causing a lot of controversy after journalist Benjamin Ryan published a piece reporting on a new bombshell study into youth gender medicine. The headline of the piece reads, "A landmark Finnish study is changing how we approach transgender kids." Benjamin Ryan reports, "The movement backing gender transition treatment for children is built on the claim that pediatric medical interventions are not only medically necessary, but truly life-saving. However, no researchers have ever tried to figure out whether this claim is true, until now. A major new study out of Finland found that providing cross-sex hormones and gender transition surgeries to adolescents and young adults didn't appear to have any significant effect on suicide deaths. What's more, gender distress severe enough to send young people to a gender clinic wasn't independently linked to a higher suicide rate either. What was independently tied to a greater chance of suicide in young adults? A high number of appointments with mental health specialists. In other words, severe mental health challenges." And so the researchers concluded two things. One, that suicide deaths were higher, but still rare in gender-distressed young people. And two, that this group's higher suicide rate was tied to the fact that they had a higher rate of severe psychiatric problems, not to their gender distress. What these young people need most urgently, the study authors concluded, is comprehensive mental health care, and not necessarily controversial medical interventions. So the guy who reported on this story, Benjamin Ryan, seems like actually to me a pretty typical liberal-leaning journalist type. He writes for The Atlantic, The New York Times, other kind of left-leaning media outlets where he's a science reporter, I think freelance, and he's somebody who I view as generally pretty interesting and pretty honest. And he does happen to be an openly gay man, but he's not like some far-right social conservative, anti-trans bigot or anything like that. And he's just reporting on this really significant study. Like any study, this study has its limitations, but we really don't have a lot of good data on the outcomes and implications of youth gender medicine. So anything adding to it in a comprehensive way, which this study does, to me should be an important development in the debate and should be kind of welcomed and analyzed and discussed. Yeah, no, it didn't go over like that in practice. Benjamin Ryan was dunked on, trolled, and attacked by many journalists and liberals and LGBT activists for even neutrally reporting on this study. In perhaps the most disgusting example, Toni Morrison, who is actually a senior communications director for GLAAD, one of the big LGBT activist groups, tweeted, "It's awful to hate yourself so much, to write about junk science just to make yourself feel good. And as if writing for the Post is journalism. Bye, Felicia." I found this really disgusting because this person didn't actually respond to the study, to Ryan's reporting, or anything, or make any kind of actual argument. This person who supposedly wants to advance and uplift LGBT people just called a gay journalist self-hating and self-loathing for doing his job, for reporting on a study that people find controversial. It's very bizarre to me, and it's also very indicative of how we don't really have an open and honest debate on this new emerging area of medicine that's really untested and has very little sufficient data to back it up, because people are so quick to shut down and silence and yell bigot at people who try to explore the topic in any way that dissents from their party line. Now, some people raised interesting, if not, in my view, particularly compelling critiques of the study and its limitations. So there was a heated debate that ensued over the study's decision to control for the number of mental health visits. So essentially, when trying to evaluate whether gender-affirming care produced better outcomes in a patient, they would compare patients who had the same amount of mental health care visits, controlling for that as a factor, like you do in many studies, control for other things that could confound the results. Now, the supporters of gender-affirming care and the LGBT activists essentially argued that this ruins the whole study, makes it all useless, because in their view, controlling for mental health visits is in part controlling for the outcome, because the mental health visits are a symbol and go along with worse mental health outcomes. So, for example, the LGBT activist and writer Aaron Reed writes of this criticism that in an illustrative example, Dr. McNamara, who's a critic of the Finnish study, compares controlling for psychiatric contact in a study on suicide to controlling for variables such as hours worked in a study on the gender pay gap, and using it to claim that a gender pay gap does not exist. If women work less hours due to gendered expectations, then controlling for hours worked controls for the pay gap itself, because they are so intrinsically connected. Despite this, there have been similar attempts to over-control for the gender pay gap in order to try to erase claims that it exists. Ironically, I actually found that this example made the opposite of the point that they think it makes. If you want to look at the gender pay gap, which we mean by that, the difference, alleged difference, that men and women are paid for the same work, same qualifications, same jobs, same inputs, but different outputs because of gender, of course you have to control for hours worked. Otherwise, if men are working more hours than women, then you'll have a disparity even if they're being paid exactly the same for the amount of work they're relatively doing. This is like statistics 101 stuff. They go on to make a couple other comparisons. Reed writes, if one wanted to erase the impact of CO2 on climate change, for instance, you could control for ice thickness and claim that it's actually polar ice that determines the temperature of the Earth rather than CO2 output, even though ice thickness and temperature are intrinsically connected. If you wanted to erase the impact of smoking on death, you could control for specialist doctor visits while claiming that it's actually visits to the doctor that predict death, not smoking. Here's what this logic gets wrong. When we talk about whether gender-affirming care in terms of hormones and surgeries and these kinds of things, when we talk about whether or not that's effective, what we're trying to evaluate is that as a form of treatment. But it's not the only form of treatment for gender dysphoria. So what we're trying to compare is people who have gender dysphoria, one group of whom who go down this path of medical transition and receive mental health care, versus people who don't go the medical transition route but still receive the mental health care. To see the difference in outcomes, you have to control for the amount of mental health care they're receiving. Anyway, that's why I don't find these criticisms particularly compelling, and I actually find that they just seem like an ideological attempt to shut down inconvenient data and outcomes, especially because these same people regularly cite data with much more severe methodological flaws. Were you surprised by the results of the study? Do you find any of these criticisms compelling? I'm honestly curious, so let me know in the comments.
Hey guys, Hannah here, reminding you to check out our weekly episode of the Base Politics podcast with myself and Brad Polumbo. This week, we're talking about some monumental free speech cases that are heading to the Supreme Court this week. Plus, Dr. Phil owns the women of The View, and a former New York Times writer gets in trouble for liking a sandwich. Don't forget to tune in. Join us on the Base Politics YouTube channel now.
Now up next, let's head to Virginia and talk about some drama over misgendering that got the Virginia state government all embroiled in a controversy this week. So there is a transgender state senator, Danica Roem, who is a transgender woman, meaning born biologically male but identifies as a woman. And then the state lieutenant governor is Winsome Sears, a Black woman and conservative Republican who in her role as lieutenant governor oversees a lot of state Senate business. The controversy was prompted after Sears referred to Roem as Sir during a Senate event this week. Take a listen.
Purpose does the senator from Prince William rise?
Madam President, rise for parliamentary inquiry.
The senator may state it.
Madam President, how many votes would it take to pass this bill with the emergency clause?
That would be 4/5, Senator.
And what would be the exact number for that, Madam President?
Yes, sir, that would be 32. The question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The bill passes.
On page 19, House Bill 964.
Senator Hashmi, the senator from Chesterfield. Senator Hashmi. Senator Hashmi. Senator Saravel, for what purpose does the senator rise?
I think I'd ask that we take a recess for 5 minutes.
Without objection, the House stands at recess for 5 minutes. Our Senate stands at recess, this esteemed body, for 5 minutes.
So just from listening, you won't be able to see this, but Roem actually stormed out of the Senate chambers after this happened. Winsome Sears went on to apologize for this incident and claimed that she never intended to offend anyone.
That I said something that upset Senator Roem. Let it be known, I am not here to upset anyone. I am here to do the job that the people of Virginia have called me to do, and that is to treat everyone with respect and dignity. I myself have at times not been afforded that same respect and dignity. But in this body, and as long as I am president of the Senate, and by the grace of God, I will be treated with respect and dignity, and I will treat everyone else with respect and dignity. I have called people not by their names, but by everyone else's names. Indeed, I have just put the Senate at ease in the name of the House. It is never my intention to make anyone offended, and I hope that others would consider that they would try not to offend me as well. We are all equal under the law. And so, I apologize, I apologize, I apologize. And I would hope that everyone would understand there is no intent to offend, but that we will also give each other the ability to forgive each other. I have seen us conduct ourselves in ways that we would not expect of our own children or nieces or nephews. And so I would hope that we take this opportunity to be kind to each other, to be gracious to each other, to be about the people's business. That is what I hope. And I join you in serving the people of this great Commonwealth. I join you in being a citizen of this great country. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
So I have a couple thoughts on this. First and foremost, if I was involved in the Virginia state legislature, I would have no problem using Senator Rome's pronouns. However, I get that people feel differently about this and some people might not want to use them. In that case, I do believe the respectful thing to do would be to try to avoid the issue. So maybe just refer to the senator as senator instead of sir or ma'am. So if Winsome Sears intentionally did this, I would say that I don't really think that's called for or civil or polite. But Sears is now claiming it wasn't intentional, and I can't really peer into her mind and say one way or the other. I do have to criticize Senator Rome, though, because to watch the senator storm out over this was really, really ridiculous, in my opinion. You're a grown-ass adult doing your job, representing the people of your district, and you're going to storm out of an official proceeding like a toddler throwing a tantrum just because somebody said a word about you you didn't like. That, to me, suggests a degree of mental fragility and a lack of resiliency that I don't have a lot of respect for, and I don't respect a politician putting their own feelings and ego over actually serving their constituents. So I think there's some blame and some criticism to go around on this incident. But what do you think, more importantly? Let me know in the comments below. And now, as always, we'll round out the show with me reacting to some unhinged LGBT TikToks and trying not to lose too many brain cells as I suffer for your entertainment. Up first, are it pronouns now a thing?
I personally have never met someone that uses its pronouns. And I know that a lot of people stigmatize its pronouns because it sounds like dehumanizing or it's weird. But the other day I heard someone referring to someone else with its pronouns. And it occurred to me that its is the kind of language that we use for like really cute animals. Like when we see a stray black cat, we say, oh my God, look at it, it's so cute. Or if we see like a bunny mama with its babies, we're like, oh, look at it with its little babies. And I hope this sounds supportive and not infantilizing, but this person was talking about how it wasn't feeling good and it was being like bullied by someone. And I felt very protective. I was like, you stay away from that little bunny or I'm gonna you bitch. Oh. Anyway, I wish everyone with neo pronouns a very good night and a little kiss on the forehead and a scratch on the tummy. This is an official endorsement of its pronouns by local they, he, Tyler, silly pretty boy, last name redacted. No limitations apply.
I love how this individual was like, I know some people say it's dehumanizing to call somebody it/its, but we do it for cute, fluffy animals. Babe, you do know what dehumanizing means, don't you? And I'm sorry, but you don't get to destroy and rewrite our language. It refers to a thing, and a thing in this context is definitionally not a person. I personally wouldn't want to participate in calling someone it/its because it does feel like I'm dehumanizing them or making them, referring to them like they're an object and not a human being. Well, instead of trying to convince people to use those pronouns and go along with it, which, I'm sorry, Cupcake, it's just never going to happen, you should look internally and try to figure out what it is exactly that makes you feel affirmed or more comfortable when people dehumanize you. My heart goes out to you, honestly. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or make fun of you, but I would suggest that that's something internal that you should try to rectify or think about or reconcile within yourself. Personally, I won't be participating in this exercise, and I also resent it being tied to me being gay or to the LGBT community and our legitimate, actual identities that we just want to live our lives and be left alone. I do resent it being tied to this extreme and unhealthy approach. Up next, the alphabet people continue to struggle with this whole consistency thing.
Wait, you're trans? I thought you were non-binary. Well, technically non-binary is under the trans umbrella, so... Oh, so what exactly is trans then? Trans is basically anybody that doesn't identify with the sex that they were born with. Oh, I see. But not all non-binary people identify with the term trans, so it just depends on the person. Okay, so it's a bit more broad, like an umbrella. Umbrella.
Babe, you're incoherent. You really need to make up your mind. Is non-binary part of trans? Or does each non-binary person get to decide whether they're trans or not? Because it can't be both, if your goal is to make any sense. I mean, imagine this. Let's use a false hypothetical, right? Imagine if I told you that Puerto Rico is part of America, but that not all Puerto Ricans are Americans. Would you see how nonsensical that is? Honestly, sometimes I have a hard time discussing or reacting to these people because it seems like they haven't even figured out what they're trying to say yet. So how am I supposed to comprehend and analyze their arguments? Up next, this trans influencer thinks that dress codes don't apply to them.
So I am f***ed, and I need you all to tell me if I'm being unreasonable.
Oh.
So I got pulled into the office today at work for wearing this shirt. Now, this shirt is definitely against the dress code, but hear me out.
Oh?
Every Sunday, we're allowed to wear a football jersey, and not just any football jersey, it has to be a Patriots jersey. Now, I have worn a Bucs jersey, I've worn a Chargers jersey, I've worn a Rams jersey, I've worn every jersey but the Patriots jersey, and it's never been a problem. So in honor of Transgender Remembrance Day, I decided that I would wear this instead, knowing that I'm bending the rules a bit, but bending the rules for dress code has never been an issue before until now. They never cared when I was wearing the wrong football jersey, but wearing this anti-hate trans pride shirt, that's the line apparently. Now, I very calmly made it clear how important wearing this shirt was today, but no, they made me cover it up. I stormed off to my goddamn car and I nearly drove off right then and there. But I didn't. I stayed, kept my job, did not get myself fired. Am I being unreasonable here? I always bend the dress code rules. It's never been a problem. Until now. Am I being unreasonable?
First things first, shout out to my producer who's going to have to do a lot of bleeping for me to discuss this video. But secondly, I'm just sick of alphabet people thinking that because of their identity, they get to play by their own special different rules. I mean, you literally admitted that what you tried to wear doesn't comply with your work's dress code. Yet you're complaining and acting like you're a victim because you're not allowed to wear it at work. You're going to have to make that one make sense for me, babe, because the math isn't mathing. And I get it that they have an exception to the dress code for jerseys on Sunday, but there's a world of difference between wearing a sports jersey and wearing some sort of political, radical activist attire. It's actually kind of a big difference, assuming that you have some sort of customer-facing job, because I can completely understand why a business or an employer wouldn't want some sort of political slogan, whether it was, pro-trans or anti-trans or one way or the other, wouldn't want you blasting that out to customers and potentially making them feel like isolated or expressing a divisive message or anything. Like, just keep that out of the workplace. That seems like a reasonable enough rule to have. Also, how do people post on TikTok like this and just get away with it without getting fired? It's honestly kind of shocking to me, because if I ran a business and I saw one of my employees popping off and cussing me out like this publicly, they'd be getting a pink slip the next day.
You're fired.
Honestly, instead of whining about a t-shirt, maybe you should just be thankful that you still have a job. Up next, this kind of stuff floats around TikTok and reaches countless impressionable young people, and when we watch it, you'll see why I find that really concerning.
What are hormone blockers and how do they affect your body? Well, I'm glad you asked. Hormone blockers are a series of injections and or an implant that you can have put in your arm. that temporarily pauses puberty.
Oh, what do you mean temporarily pauses puberty?
For people assigned male at birth, puberty blockers will decrease facial hair and body hair growth, prevent your voice from getting deeper, and will limit eggplant growth.
And for people assigned female at birth,
hormone blockers will prevent boobie growth and getting your period.
no more periods. Ay!
However, once you stop taking puberty blockers, your body will then go into puberty, and that's why it's only temporary.
This is yikes for me, folks. A lot of the information discussed here is really not accurate. I mean, it's not, in fact, reversible if you do puberty blockers and then hormone therapy and never have some of this development occur. It's not reversible or temporary, actually. But more broadly, it is really irresponsible to go on a platform with millions of impressionable young people where you have all these followers and then basically advertise or try to convince or sell the benefits and how wonderful it is of a medication when you are not, in fact, a doctor or pharmacist or anybody qualified to actually assess the risks and benefits of this kind of medication. And there's something particularly gross about the way that this person talks about how it'll stop you from having a period. Yeah, woo! Like, my female followers will have to chime in and let me know what they think, but I'm just imagining an impressionable young girl who's just started having her period and is really suffering, seeing this kind of scientifically misleading and inaccurate content saying like, look, you don't have to have a period. You can take this medicine and you can go like around this path and you can get out of this terrible experience. Like, you're not a doctor. You should not be trying to lure in kids to take a medication with promises that their negative experiences will go away. It strikes me as really, really inappropriate and bizarre and a wildly irresponsible use of your platform. But TikTok will allow this kind of stuff all day and just ban people like me who have the common sense to criticize it. Make it make sense. I can't. All right, guys, that's all the LGBT TikTok I can handle in one sitting without incurring permanent brain damage. If you got a kick out of this, you enjoyed watching me suffer, don't forget to hit that like button, comment with your thoughts, and maybe even consider subscribing and sticking around. And with that, I'll see you all next week. But if you want more of my content, you can go here or here to check out other videos you might just enjoy.